Zaranel stood in the center of the council chamber with her head held high. Her hands were steady at her sides, even though her heart was racing. The three elders sat on their raised platform, looking down at her with cold eyes. Behind them, the symbols of her people glowed on the walls in soft blue light. She already knew what they would say. The medical tests had been clear. Her body could not produce offspring. In her society, this was the worst thing that could happen to a female. It meant she was worthless. Elder Mirakan spoke first. His voice was flat and formal. Zaranel of Clan Drakir, the healers have completed their examination. You carry a genetic flaw that prevents reproduction. According to our laws, you are classified as barren. The word hung in the air like a weapon. Zaranel felt each pair of eyes in the room turn toward her. Other Velkari warriors stood along the walls, watching the ceremony. Some looked at her with pity, most looked at her with disgust. Commander Velthor, Elder Mirakan continued, you have been bonded to this female since youth. Do you wish to proceed with the union, knowing she cannot bear your children? Velthor stepped forward from the crowd. He was tall and powerful, his scales a deep green that showed his high status. Zaranel had known him for 15 cycles. They had trained together as children. They had fought side by side in border conflicts. She had thought he cared for her. His face showed nothing as he looked at her. I do not, he said simply, the words cut deeper than any blade. Zaranel kept her expression neutral. But inside, something broke. Then speak the words of rejection, the elder commanded. Velthor's voice was strong and clear. I reject this bond. I reject this female. She has no value to me or to our people. Let her clan markings be removed. Let her name be forgotten. 2 guards moved toward Zaranel. They carried a heated tool that glowed red. She knew what came next. Every Velkari warrior wore clan markings on their armor. These markings showed who they were, where they came from, and what they had achieved. Removing them meant she was nothing. She stood still as they pressed the hot metal against the symbols on her chest plate. The clan marks burned away, leaving only scorched metal behind. The smell of burning paint filled her nostrils. She did not flinch. She would not give them that satisfaction. You have 1 cycle to leave Velkari territory, Elder Mirakan announced. If you remain, you will be executed. Your presence wastes resources that could support fertile females. This council is dismissed. The chamber began to empty. Warriors filed out, most avoiding her eyes. Velthor left without looking back. Only Elder Koranis, the oldest of the 3 judges, paused at the doorway. She glanced at Zaranel with something that might have been sympathy. Then she too was gone. Zaranel stood alone in the empty chamber. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to walk. She would not collapse here. She would not show weakness in this place. She made her way through the corridors of Harmony Point, the massive space station that served as neutral ground for many species. The Velkari sector was behind her now. She passed humans, Zenthari traders, and other aliens she did not know the names of. No one paid attention to one more warrior walking the halls. But then, her vision blurred. Her breath came too fast. She stumbled and caught herself against a wall. Her hand pressed against the cold metal. She tried to breathe normally. She tried to think clearly, but all she could hear was Velthor's voice saying she had no value. Hey, you all right? Zaranel looked up. A human male stood a few feet away, wearing the dark blue uniform of Earth's military. He was shorter than her by several inches, with brown hair and concerned eyes. A name tag on his chest read, Brooks. I am fine, she said automatically, pushing away from the wall. You don't look fine, the human said. He did not move closer, but he did not leave either. You need to sit down. There's a quiet spot around the corner. Observation deck. Usually empty this time of day. Zaranel stared at him. Why was this human speaking to her? Did he not know what she was? I do not need help, she said. Okay, the human said simply. But he pulled a bottle from his belt and held it out. At least take some water. You look dehydrated. She looked at the bottle, then at his face. There was no mockery there. No disgust. Just simple concern. It confused her. She took the bottle carefully, making sure their hands did not touch. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why do you help me? You do not know me." The human shrugged. "Don't need to know you to see someone having a rough day. I'm Kyle. By the way, Marine Corps. Assigned to station security. I am Zaranel," she said quietly. Then she remembered. I was Zaranel. Kyle's expression shifted to something thoughtful. Was? What changed? She should not tell him. It was shameful. But something about his calm voice made the words spill out. I am Barren. My people have cast me out. I have no clan, no bondmate, no purpose. In one cycle, I must leave, or they will kill me. The human was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made no sense. That's messed up. Thank you for watching. Messed up? Yeah, wrong, unfair. Kyle looked directly at her. You're clearly a trained warrior. I saw you fight in the simulation exercises last month. You took down 3 opponents in under a minute, but your people reject you because of biology you can't control? Zaranel blinked. A warrior's skill means nothing without the ability to pass on strong genes. This is our way. Well, your way is messed up, Kyle said bluntly. Where I come from, a person's worth isn't decided by whether they can have kids. It's decided by who they are. What they do, how they treat others. He gestured toward the observation deck entrance. Come on. Sit down for a few minutes. Catch your breath. No judgment. Zaranel found herself following him. The observation deck was small, with wide windows showing the stars beyond the station. Kyle sat down on one of the benches and gestured to the space beside him. After a moment's hesitation, she sat down too, keeping distance between them. They sat in silence for several minutes. Zaranel drank the water slowly. Outside, stars drifted past as the station rotated. For what it's worth, Kyle said quietly, I think they're idiots for rejecting you. You're clearly capable. That should matter. Zaranel looked at him. You are strange, human. He smiled. Yeah, I get that a lot. He stood up and stretched. I've got patrol in 10 minutes, but hey, if you need anything while you're figuring out your next move. Human sector is pretty welcoming. We've got a combat gym if you want to train. Keeps the mind clear. He started to walk away, then paused. And Zaranel? You still are who you are. No council can take that away. Then he was gone, leaving her alone with the stars and a strange, unfamiliar feeling in her chest. Hope, perhaps, or maybe just confusion. But for the first time since the rejection, she felt like she could breathe. 3 days after her rejection, Zaranel found work in the cargo bay. It was low work. Beneath her training and skills, she moved boxes, checked inventory, and loaded supplies onto transport ships. The pay was minimal. The supervisor, a gruff Zenthari named Rock, barely spoke to her. But it kept her busy. And busy meant she did not have to think. Other Velkari avoided her now. When she passed them in the corridors, they turned away or crossed to the other side. Once, she saw 2 females from her old unit. They had been friends, or so she thought. They looked at her with pity and hurried past without speaking. Velthor she saw only once, from a distance. He walked with a new female, one with bright green scales that marked her as highly fertile. His hand rested on her shoulder in the way he used to touch Zaranel. She turned away before he could see her watching. The nights were the hardest. Alone in her small quarters in the neutral sector, the shame pressed down on her like a physical weight. Her people had taught her from birth that a female's worth came from her ability to bear strong children. Without that, what was she? The elders had called her a waste of resources. Velthor had said she had no value. Maybe they were right. She was loading a particularly heavy crate on the 5th day when a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Need a hand?" Zaranel turned. Kyle Brooks stood there in casual clothes, not his uniform. He looked relaxed, with a bag slung over one shoulder. "I can manage," she said, though the crate weighed more than she expected. Kyle set down his bag and grabbed the other end anyway. Together, they lifted it onto the stack. "There. Easier with two," he said with a smile. "Why are you here?" Zaranel asked. The cargo bay was far from the human sector. "Picking up equipment for the gym," Kyle said, pointing to his bag. "Saw you working and figured I'd say hi. How are you holding up?" The casual concern in his voice was strange. In Velkari culture, showing concern for someone of low status was seen as weakness. "I survive," she said simply. "That's not the same as being okay," Kyle observed. He leaned against a crate. "Look, I know we just met, but you seem like you could use a friend. You ever take up that offer about the gym?" Zaranel shook her head. "I have work. Your shift ends in an hour." I checked. When she looked surprised, he shrugged. "Figured you might need a push. Come on. Training helps clear the head. Trust me, I know what it's like to feel lost." She wanted to refuse, but the thought of returning to her empty quarters, of sitting alone with her shame, was worse. 1 hour, she agreed. The human combat gym was different from Velkari training halls. It had weights and machines, but also mats for sparring and bags for striking. Several humans were training when they arrived. They glanced at Zaranel with curiosity but no hostility. "This is Amy," Kyle said, introducing her to a human female with short black hair. "She's my training partner most days." Amy extended her hand in the human greeting gesture. Zaranel hesitated, then copied the movement. The handshake felt awkward. "Kyle mentioned you," Amy said. "Says you're a skilled fighter." "I was," Zaranel corrected quietly. "Still are," Kyle said firmly. He handed her practice gloves. "Skills don't disappear just because someone says they do. Show me what you've got." They started slowly. Kyle demonstrated human boxing techniques, while Zaranel showed some Velkari combat forms. At first, she held back, uncertain, but as they sparred, muscle memory took over. Her body remembered the movements, the strikes, the blocks, the flow of combat. For the first time in days, her mind went quiet. There was only the motion, the challenge, the focus. She moved faster, hitting harder. Kyle kept pace, grinning even when she swept his legs and put him on the mat. "See?" he said, breathing hard but smiling. "Still got it." Zaranel felt something she had not felt since the rejection. A small spark of pride. "Your technique is sloppy," she said, offering him a hand up. "Yeah, well, teach me something better," Kyle challenged. So she did. For the next hour, she showed him Velkari close combat moves. He was a quick learner, adapting the techniques to his smaller frame. Other humans stopped to watch. Some asked questions. Amy joined in, eager to learn. No one looked at Zaranel with disgust or pity. They looked at her with respect. As a teacher. As a fellow warrior. It was strange. Wonderful. Confusing. When the session ended, Zaranel felt more like herself than she had in days. "Thank you," she told Kyle quietly. "Don't thank me. You did the work." He grabbed water bottles for both of them. "Same time tomorrow?" She nodded. It became routine. Every day after her shift in the cargo bay, Zaranel went to the gym. She trained with Kyle and Amy and others. They pushed each other, learned from each other. No one asked about her status or her past. They cared only about her skill and her presence. 2 weeks passed, then 3. The day of her exile deadline came and went. Zaranel realized the Velkari had forgotten about her, or simply did not care enough to enforce the order. She existed in a strange limbo, neither part of her old people nor fully part of her new life. One evening, she and Kyle sat in the observation deck after training. It had become their spot. a place to cool down and talk. Kyle told her about Earth, about his family in a place called Montana, about why he had joined the military. Zaranel found herself sharing stories of her childhood, of learning to fight, of dreams she once had. "Can I ask you something?" Kyle said carefully. "Why does your culture put so much importance on breeding? You're a warrior, a tactician. That has value." Zaranel considered her words. "My people have a low birth rate. Each child is precious. Females who can bear strong offspring ensure our species survives. Those who cannot are seen as genetic dead ends, wasting resources that could go to fertile females. But you're still a person," Kyle said. "You have skills, knowledge, experience. That's worth something. Not to my people." "Then your people are wrong," Kyle said simply. He turned to look at her. "I've been watching you train for 3 weeks now. You're one of the best fighters I've ever seen. You're smart, dedicated, strong. If your culture can't see that, the problem isn't you. It's them." Zaranel felt warmth in her chest, a strange sensation. "You barely know me." "I know enough," Kyle said. "I know you kept your dignity when they tried to take it. I know you get up every day and push forward even though everything fell apart. I know you're teaching us combat techniques that could save lives someday." "That means something, Zara." The way he said her name, without the formal Nell suffix, felt intimate, personal. She should have corrected him. Instead, she said, "You are a strange human, Kyle Brooks." He laughed. "So you keep saying." His expression grew serious. "Look, I don't know what your plans are, but you've got friends here. You're not alone." Before Zaranel could respond, angry voices echoed from the corridor outside. The door slid open, and 3 Velkari warriors entered the observation deck. She recognized them from the military units. The leader was a young male named Draknor, who had always competed with her for rankings. "So this is where the defective one hides," Draknor said in the Velkari language. His companions laughed. Zaranel stood slowly. "Leave, Draknor. This area is neutral territory. We can go where we wish." He sneered. He looked at Kyle. "Is this your new bondmate? A weak human? Fitting for a barren female. Though I wonder what he gets from the arrangement. Certainly not offspring." Kyle stood as well, though he did not understand the language. But the hostile tone was clear. "There a problem?" he asked calmly. "Your human pet speaks," Draknor said, still in Velkari. He took a step toward Kyle. "Does he know what you are? Defective? Does he know you are worthless?" "Enough," Zaranel said sharply. But Draknor was not finished. He reached out and shoved Kyle's shoulder. "Weak, like all humans." He shoved again. Harder. Kyle's hand snapped out, faster than Zaranel expected. He grabbed Draknor's wrist, twisted, and used the Velkari's own momentum to flip him onto his back. The move was one Zaranel had taught him 2 days ago. He had executed it perfectly. Draknor stared up in shock. His companions froze. "Want to try that again?" Kyle asked quietly. The alarm blared through Harmony Point at 0400 hours. Zaranel woke instantly, her warrior training taking over. She reached for her armor before remembering she no longer had the right to wear full Velkari military gear. Instead, she grabbed the plain combat suit she used for cargo bay work and ran into the corridor. Red lights flashed overhead. The automated voice announced, "All military personnel report to stations. Pirate vessels detected. Civilian convoy under attack." Zaranel's heart raced. Her instincts screamed at her to help, to fight, but she was no longer military. She had no assignment, no ship, no place in the defense. She ran toward the military sector anyway. The command center was chaos. Human, Velkari, and other species rushed to their posts. Zaranel stood at the entrance, uncertain. Then she saw Kyle across the room, gearing up with his unit. "Zara!" He spotted her and jogged over. "You need to get to a shelter. This could get messy." Let me fight, she said immediately. I am trained. I can help. You're not assigned to any unit, Kyle said, but he hesitated, looking at her face. He turned to his commanding officer, a stern woman named Lieutenant Hayes. Ma'am, request permission to bring an auxiliary fighter. Former Velkari tactical officer. Hayes looked at Zaranel, then at the tactical displays showing 3 pirate ships closing on the convoy. Can she shoot? Better than most of us, Kyle said. Gear up, you're with Marine Squad 3, move out in 2 minutes. Zaranel felt a surge of purpose flood through her. Kyle tossed her a weapon and a combat vest. Stay close to me, he said. We watch each other's backs. They boarded a rapid assault shuttle with 12 other Marines. The pilot pushed the engines hard, racing toward the convoy. Through the viewport, Zaranel could see the civilian ships under fire, their shields failing. The pirates were closing in. 2 minutes to engagement, the pilot announced. Kyle checked his weapon, then looked at her. You ready? I was born ready, Zaranel replied. The shuttle shook as it entered the combat zone. Pirates fired on them. But the pilot dodged skillfully. They latched onto one of the damaged convoy ships. Using its hull for cover, breach team, go, Lieutenant Hayes commanded. The Marines poured out, returning fire at the pirates who were trying to board the civilian ship. Zaranel moved with them, her body falling into combat patterns she had trained for years. She took down 2 pirates with precise shots, then used hand-to-hand combat to disable a third who got too close. Nice moves, Amy said, fighting beside her. The battle lasted 30 brutal minutes. The pirates were numerous but disorganized. The Marines, despite being outnumbered, fought with discipline and coordination. Zaranel found herself naturally falling into a tactical role, calling out enemy positions and suggesting formations. Kyle heard her and relayed the information to Hayes. The lieutenant, recognizing good tactical sense when she heard it, started following Zaranel's suggestions. The tide turned. Then Kyle's warning shout, "Grenade!" Zaranel saw the explosive device bouncing toward a cluster of Marines. Without thinking, she dove, grabbed it, and hurled it back toward the pirates. It exploded in mid-air, shielding them from the worst of the blast, but the force still knocked her down. Kyle was at her side immediately. Zara, you okay? I am fine, she gasped, though her ears were ringing. But then she heard the hiss. Her suit had been breached by shrapnel. Air was leaking out. In the vacuum of the damaged ship section, she had maybe 2 minutes. Kyle saw it instantly. He yanked his emergency oxygen line free and plugged it into her suit. Share mine. Come on. We need to get back to the shuttle. They moved together, Kyle supporting her weight as they fought their way back. 3 pirates tried to block their path. Zaranel, despite her injury and dizziness, took down one with a leg sweep. Kyle shot the other 2. They made it to the shuttle with 30 seconds to spare. The medic sealed her suit breach, while Zaranel gulped air. The battle ended shortly after. The coalition forces drove off the pirates, saving most of the convoy. As they returned to Harmony Point, Lieutenant Hayes approached Zaranel. That was some tactical work out there, Hayes said. And that move with the grenade probably saved 4 of my people. I'm putting you in for a commendation. Zaranel was too surprised to speak. Hayes nodded and moved on. Kyle sat down beside her, both of them exhausted. You saved my life out there, he said quietly. When those 3 had me pinned? You saved mine when you shared your oxygen, she replied. Guess we're even then, he smiled, but his eyes were serious. Zara, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about it for a while now. But after today, after almost losing you. He took a breath. I care about you. A lot. More than just as a training partner or friend. Zaranel's heart beat faster. Kyle, I cannot offer you anything. I have no status, no future, no ability to give you children. You deserve. Stop, he interrupted gently. I'm not looking for a broodmare. I don't care about offspring. I care about you. The person you are. The brave, intelligent, skilled woman who fights beside me. That's what I want. My people would never accept it, she said. Though her voice was weak, part of her wanted desperately to believe him. Then we don't ask their permission. Kyle pulled out his datapad. I've been researching Velkari customs. There's an old law. Something called the claim of the unwanted. If someone from outside Velkari culture claims a rejected individual as their mate, that person falls under the protection of the outsider's culture. It hasn't been used in centuries, but it's still technically valid. Zaranel stared at him. You researched my people's laws? I wanted to find a way. If you'll have me. He met her eyes. I know this is fast. I know it's complicated. But life is short. And I almost lost you today. I don't want to waste time pretending I don't feel this way. She was quiet for a long moment. Everything she had been taught told her this was wrong, that she had nothing to offer. But Kyle saw value in her when her own people did not. He had treated her with respect and kindness from the first moment, and she cared for him too, though she had been afraid to admit it even to herself. What would this claiming involve? She asked carefully. Kyle smiled. According to Elder Koranis, she helped me with the research I would need to perform the ritual publicly. I would speak the old words, present you with a token, and declare you under my protection. Then you decide if you accept. When would you do this? Tomorrow, if you're willing. The sooner the better, before the Velkari Council can object. Zaranel felt fear and hope warring inside her. This will cause problems. For both of us. Probably, Kyle agreed. But you're worth it. Those simple words broke through her final resistance. She reached out and placed her hand over his heart, a gesture she had seen humans use. Then, yes, I accept. The next day, Kyle stood in the central plaza of Harmony Point. A crowd had gathered, curious about the strange announcement. The Velkari Council members were present, including Elder Koranis. Commander Velthor stood at the front, his expression dark. Kyle wore his dress uniform. He had asked Zaranel to wear her old armor, and she had agreed. Though the missing clan marks felt like open wounds, he spoke in Velkari, the words carefully memorized. I stand before this assembly to invoke the ancient right of the claim of the unwanted. I am Kyle Brooks of Earth, and I claim Zaranel, formerly of Clan Drakir, as my mate. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Velkari Council members looked shocked. Kyle continued. She is mine to protect, mine to honor, and mine to stand beside. Any who would harm her must go through me. He pulled out a small object, his military challenge coin, which he had modified. It bore both human and Velkari blessing symbols, etched carefully. He held it out to Zaranel. By the old laws and new bonds I claim you. Do you accept? Zaranel felt every eye on her. She saw Velthor's angry face. She saw other Velkari looking disgusted or confused. But she also saw Kyle's steady gaze. Full of faith in her, she took the coin. Then she placed her hand over his heart in the human way, and touched her forehead to his in the Velkari way. I accept, she said clearly. The plaza erupted in noise. Commander Velthor shouted, This is an insult, a mockery. But Elder Koranis stepped forward. Her old voice carried authority. The claim is made according to ancient law. The female has accepted, by our own traditions, which we claim to hold sacred. This bond is legal. Zaranel now falls under human cultural protection. Velthor's face twisted with rage. A human taking our garbage as a prize. This is unacceptable. Kyle turned to face him. Say that again, he said quietly. Dangerously. You think you can challenge me? Velthor sneered. Yeah, I do. Kyle's voice was calm. If you have a problem with my choice, we can settle it the old-fashioned way. Elder Koranis spoke up. A formal duel may be called, if both parties agree. Velthor smiled coldly. I accept. We fight until one submits. Zaranel grabbed Kyle's arm. No. He is trained from childhood. He is stronger, faster. Kyle turned to her. Trust me, he said softly. Then, louder. We fight in 3 days. Time and place? The news of the upcoming duel spread through Harmony Point like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion. In the human quarters, Kyle's fellow Marines were divided. Some supported him, calling it honorable to stand up for Zaranel. Others thought he was throwing away his career for an alien female he barely knew. Lieutenant Hayes pulled him aside the morning after the challenge. Brooks, you know this is insane, right? Velthor has 50 pounds on you and twice your reach. He's been training in Valkyrie combat since he could walk. I know the odds, ma'am, Kyle said calmly. Then why are you doing this? Hayes demanded. Kyle met her eyes. Because someone needs to show them that what they did to Zara was wrong. And because I love her. That enough reason? Hayes sighed. Just don't get yourself killed. I need good Marines. But there was respect in her voice. The Valkyrie reaction was worse. Groups of warriors began harassing Zaranel whenever she appeared in public areas. They called her names in their language, saying she had shamed their entire species by accepting a human's claim. Some spat at her feet as she passed. Once, 3 Valkyrie females cornered her near the cargo bay. You think you are special now? One hissed. You are still defective. The human will realize this and abandon you. Zaranel kept her head high and walked past them without responding. But their words cut deep. Late at night, when she was alone, doubt crept in. What if they were right? What if Kyle eventually saw her as the burden her own people claimed she was? Kyle found her in the observation deck that evening, staring out at the stars. He sat beside her without speaking at first. Just being present. They are right to question this, Zaranel said finally. I bring you nothing but trouble. They're wrong, Kyle said firmly. And I'm going to prove it. How? By getting hurt in this duel? She turned to face him. Fear in her eyes. Velthor is a superior fighter. He has reach, strength, experience. This duel is winnable, Kyle interrupted. With your help. My help? You know how he fights. You trained with him for years. Teach me his patterns, his preferences, his weaknesses. Kyle's expression was determined. I'm not going into that arena unprepared. For the next 3 days, Zaranel put Kyle through brutal training. They worked from dawn until late at night. She taught him every trick she knew about Valkyrie combat style. She showed him Velthor's favorite combinations, the way he favored his right side, how he got overconfident when he thought he was winning. Amy helped too, serving as a second sparring partner. He's getting better, she told Zaranel during a break. Faster. More strategic. It may not be enough, Zaranel admitted. Velthor is not just skilled, he is proud. That pride will make him vicious. Good thing Kyle's got something Velthor doesn't, Amy said. What is that? Amy smiled. Something worth fighting for. On the morning of the duel, Zaranel helped Kyle prepare. She checked his protective gear, made sure every strap was secure. Her hands were shaking slightly. Hey, Kyle said, catching her hands. I'm going to be okay. You cannot know that. No, but I believe it. And I need you to believe it too. He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. Win or lose, I don't regret this. Never doubt that. The arena was packed. Humans, Valkyrie, and other species filled the stands, all eager to see the spectacle. Station regulations required the duel to be non-lethal, but serious injury was still possible. 2 medical teams stood by. Kyle entered from one side, wearing minimal armor. Velthor entered from the other, his scales gleaming, his armor decorated with clan honors. He looked like a warrior god compared to the smaller human. Elder Koranis served as the judge. This duel is called to settle a matter of honor. The rules are ancient and clear. You fight until one submits or cannot continue. The winner's claim is upheld. The loser accepts the judgment. Do you both understand? Yes, Kyle said. I understand, Velthor replied. He looked at Zaranel in the stands. When I win, defective, You will see what happens to those who mock our ways." Kyle's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He moved to the center of the arena. The fight began. Velthor attacked immediately, using his reach advantage to strike hard and fast. Kyle dodged, blocked, retreated. The crowd murmured. It looked like a mismatch. Zaranel gripped the railing, her heart pounding. "Do not let him corner you," she whispered. Though Kyle could not hear her. As if sensing her thought, Kyle shifted his footwork, using the circular pattern she had taught him. He was not trying to match Velthor's strength. Instead, he focused on movement, on staying mobile, on wearing down his opponent. Velthor grew frustrated. He increased his aggression, throwing heavier strikes. Kyle slipped some, absorbed others on his guard. Each exchange taught him more about his opponent's rhythm. 10 minutes passed. Both fighters were breathing hard. Velthor's confidence was faltering. This weak human should have fallen by now. "Stand still and fight," Velthor roared. Kyle smiled grimly. No. He launched his own attack, using the combination Zaranel had taught him. A feint high, a strike low, a sweep at the legs. Velthor stumbled but recovered. They exchanged rapid blows, the sound echoing through the arena. Then Velthor made a mistake. He glanced at Zaranel, his expression full of contempt. "This is what you chose? This weak creature?" The distraction cost him. Kyle saw the opening and struck hard at Velthor's right side. The side Zaranel had said he left exposed when angry. The blow connected solidly. Velthor grunted in pain. "I'm done letting you insult her," Kyle said through gritted teeth. They crashed together again. This time, Kyle used the sacrifice throw. Zaranel had shown him a risky move where both fighters could get hurt, but the smaller one gains leverage. He grabbed Velthor's arm, dropped his weight, and used the Velcari's own momentum to flip him. They hit the ground hard. Kyle ended up on top, his arm locked around Velthor's throat in a submission hold. "Submit," Kyle demanded. Velthor struggled, his pride fighting against the inevitable. Kyle tightened the hold, cutting off air but being careful not to cause permanent damage. "Submit," Kyle repeated. The arena was silent. Everyone watched. Velthor's vision started to blur. Finally, with a roar of rage and humiliation, he tapped Kyle's arm 3 times. The signal of submission. Kyle released him immediately and stood up. He offered his hand to help Velthor rise, a gesture of respect. Velthor stared at the offered hand with hatred but eventually took it. He stood, gasping for air, his pride in ruins. Elder Koranis stepped forward. "The duel is concluded. Kyle Brooks of Earth is the victor. His claim stands. Zaranel is recognized as his mate under coalition law. Let no one challenge this bond." The crowd erupted. Humans cheered. Some Velcari looked shocked. Others looked thoughtful, as if seeing something they had not expected. Kyle walked to the edge of the arena where Zaranel waited. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Told you I'd be okay," he said with a tired smile. She threw her arms around him, not caring who saw. "You foolish, brave, human," she whispered. "You're foolish, brave human," he corrected. Later, in the medical bay while a doctor checked Kyle's bruises, Lieutenant Hayes visited. "That was one hell of a fight, Brooks. Word is spreading fast. You've made quite an impression." "I just did what needed doing, ma'am," Kyle said, wincing as the doctor applied treatment to a particularly nasty bruise on his ribs. "Well, you've started something. 3 other Velcari females have already filed requests to transfer to human units. Looks like you've given some people ideas about their worth." Hayes paused. "For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. She's good people." "The best," Kyle agreed, looking at Zaranel, who sat nearby. As news of the duel spread throughout the station, reactions continued to pour in. Some Velcari denounced Kyle and Zaranel, but others, especially younger warriors and rejected individuals, began to speak quietly among themselves. If a human could see value where their own people saw none, perhaps their culture needed to change. That night, Kyle and Zaranel sat together in their shared quarters. He was sore and exhausted, but at peace. What happens now? Zaranel asked. Now we live, Kyle said simply. We make a life together. We show them that their old ways don't have to define who you are. He squeezed her hand. And we be happy, if that's okay with you. Zaranel smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in months. That is more than okay, Kyle Brooks. That is everything. 6 months had passed since the duel that changed everything. Zaranel stood in the briefing room, reviewing tactical displays for the upcoming joint mission. She wore a modified uniform that combined human and Valkyrie elements, created specially for her new position. The symbol on her shoulder showed her rank: Tactical Officer, Joint Coalition Forces. Lieutenant Hayes nodded approvingly at the mission plan. Good work, Zara. This approach should minimize casualties on both sides. Thank you, ma'am, Zaranel replied. The words came easier now. She had learned that humans valued direct communication and appreciated contributions regardless of who made them. Life with Kyle had brought unexpected joys and challenges. They had moved into quarters together in the human sector, decorating the space with items from both their cultures. Kyle had hung photos of Earth mountains and forests. Zaranel had added traditional Valkyrie weapons and a small shrine to honor her ancestors, though her clan had rejected her. The cultural differences caused amusing moments. Kyle liked his living space warm. Zaranel preferred it cool. He enjoyed spicy food. Her species could barely taste it. He was naturally affectionate in public. She had been raised to show no emotion. They compromised, learned, adapted, and somehow made it work. But the biggest changes came in how others saw her. After the duel, 3 other rejected Valkyrie females had contacted Zaranel quietly. Their names were Kira-sen, Leela Noor, and Vera Kal. Each had been cast out for different reasons. One was barren like Zaranel, one had produced only daughters when sons were demanded, and one had been injured in battle and could no longer fight at full capacity. They met in secret at first, afraid of drawing attention, but Zaranel encouraged them to stand tall. We are not defective, she told them. We are warriors, thinkers, survivors. Our worth is not determined by one biological function. With Kyle's help, they formed an informal support group. More rejected Valkyrie began to reach out. Soon, they were holding regular meetings, discussing their experiences and planning for the future. Elder Koranis attended one of these meetings. The old female's presence shocked everyone. She was part of the council that had enforced the traditional rules. I come not as council member, but as someone who understands, Koranis said. When I was young, I produced only 2 offspring. My people called me inadequate. I should have been rejected, but my clan was powerful. So exceptions were made. Her old eyes looked sad. I have watched countless females cast out for circumstances beyond their control. It shamed me, but I was too afraid to speak against tradition. Until now, she looked at Zaranel. You showed courage I lacked. You and your human mate have started something important. Change will not come quickly, but it will come. I will use what influence I have to support it. Word of their meetings spread. Some Valkyrie viewed them as troublemakers. Others watched with quiet interest. The coalition command took notice as well. When 3 of the rejected females applied to join human military units, their applications were approved. The most dramatic change came when the Valkyrie High Council sent a message to Harmony Point. They wanted Zaranel to come to the homeworld and speak before the Grand Assembly. Kyle insisted on accompanying her. You do not have to do this, he told her as they prepared for the journey. You don't owe them anything. I owe it to others like me, Zaranel replied. If I can help even one female avoid what I went through, it is worth facing them. The journey to the Valkyrie homeworld took 2 weeks. The planet was beautiful: red deserts, purple forests, crystal mountains. Zaranel had not seen it in 3 years. Part of her missed it desperately. Part of her felt only anger at the home that rejected her. The Grand Assembly Hall was massive, carved from a single enormous crystal. Hundreds of Valkyrie filled the seats, looking down at the speaking platform where Zaranel and Kyle stood. The High Council sat on an elevated dais, 7 elders who held ultimate authority over their species. Head Elder Skorath spoke first. His voice carried ancient authority. Zaranel, formerly of Clan Drakir, you stand before us not in shame, but in curiosity. You were deemed worthless, yet you thrive among humans. You were rejected, yet you have achieved rank and recognition. The Council wishes to understand this contradiction. Zaranel stepped forward. Her voice was steady and clear. There is no contradiction, Elder. I was always capable. I was always valuable. My people simply could not see it, because they looked at only one aspect of who I am. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Speaking to elders so directly was nearly unheard of. She continued. I am a trained warrior. I have tactical skills that have saved lives in battle. I have knowledge, experience, and dedication, but because my body cannot produce offspring, I was called defective. Tell me, Elder, if you had a perfect weapon that could win battles but could not reproduce, would you throw it away? That is different, Skorath said, but he sounded uncertain. How is it different? Zaranel challenged. A warrior protects our people. A tactician ensures victories. These roles are valuable, yet we discard warriors and tacticians who happen to be female and barren, while keeping males with the same condition in their positions. The male healer Dronkar is infertile, yet he still serves. Why? Because his medical skill is seen as valuable despite his inability to breed. Why are females not given the same consideration? The assembly grew louder. She had touched on a truth they did not want to face. Kyle stepped forward and spoke in carefully practiced Velkari. I am human. My people measure worth differently. We value what individuals contribute, not just what they can produce. Zaranel has contributed more in 6 months than many warriors do in a lifetime. She has trained our soldiers, saved lives, led missions. If your culture cannot see that value, you are weakening yourselves. You dare lecture us about our ways? One council member demanded. I dare point out the obvious, Kyle replied calmly. You're facing declining birth rates and increasing conflicts. You need every capable warrior. Yet, you throw away skilled people because of biology. That's not tradition, that's waste. Skorath was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. What would you have us do, Zaranel? Our laws are ancient. Our ways are sacred. Laws can change. Zaranel said. Not all at once. Not easily. But they can change. I ask only this. Give rejected females a choice. Instead of exile or execution, allow them to serve in joint operations or take positions where their skills matter more than their fertility. Let them prove their worth. Some may fail, but some will thrive. As I have, give them that chance. The council members conferred quietly among themselves. The assembly waited in tense silence. Finally, Skorath spoke. The council will consider your proposal. We make no promises, but a trial program will be established. Rejected females may choose to serve in coalition forces or in scientific and technical roles, rather than face execution. They will be monitored. If they prove valuable, as you claim, the program may expand. It was not everything, but it was something. A crack in the wall of tradition. Zaranel bowed respectfully. That is all I ask, Elder. A chance. As they left the assembly hall, several young Velkari females approached. One, barely an adult, whispered, Thank you. My sister is Barren. This may save her life. Back on Harmony Point, news of the trial program spread quickly. Within a week, 5 rejected Velkari females arrived at the station, seeking to join the coalition forces. They were frightened, uncertain, but hopeful. Zaranel met with each of them. She shared her story, offered advice, connected them with resources. She saw herself in their eyes, the shame, the fear, the desperate need to prove they had value. You are not broken, she told them, the same words Kyle had told her. You were simply judged by people who only saw one part of you. We will show them the rest. Kyle watched as Zaranel mentored the newcomers, helping them adapt and find their strengths. You're good at this, he told her one evening. Leading. Inspiring. Maybe you should make it official. What do you mean? Apply for a leadership position. Create a formal integration program for Velkari who want to join coalition forces. You've basically been doing it anyway, Zaranel considered. The idea was bold. But 6 months ago, bonding with a human had seemed impossible. And she had done that. Why not this? She submitted the proposal. To her surprise, it was approved. Within 2 months, she was running the first official Velkari integration program, helping rejected members of her species find new purpose and new lives. One evening, as she and Kyle sat in their favorite spot on the observation deck, she reflected on how far she had come. I was rejected for being barren, she said quietly. My people said I was worthless, and for a time, I believed them. Kyle took her hand. And now? Now I help others see their worth. I serve with honor. I love and am loved. She looked at him. You told me once that I was never broken. That they were just looking at me wrong. I did not believe you then. But you were right. You did the hard part, Kyle said. You kept going when everything fell apart. You stayed strong. You chose to see yourself differently. I could not have done it without you. Maybe. But you did do it. That's what matters. He squeezed her hand. So what's next? You've changed policy? Started a program? Helped dozens of people? What does the great Zaranel do for an encore? She laughed. Live. Be happy. Continue making a difference. She paused. Perhaps. Adopt. She paused. Kyle looked surprised. Yeah? There are orphans from the border conflicts, children of both species who need homes. We cannot have biological offspring together. But we could give a child a family. If you want. Kyle's smile was bright and genuine. I want. Whenever you're ready. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars drift past the viewport. A transport ship approached in the distance, carrying the newest group of rejected Velkari seeking a fresh start. Zaranel thought about the journey that had brought her here, from rejection and shame to purpose and love. It had been painful. It had been difficult. But she would not change it. She was no longer Zaranel of Clan Drakir, the barren female who had no value. She was Zaranel Brooks, tactical officer, program director, mentor, mate, and soon, perhaps, mother. She was valued for her skills, respected for her courage, and loved for who she was. That was worth everything. Kyle leaned his head against hers. What are you thinking about? That I am grateful, she said simply. For you. For this life. For second chances. Me too. He kissed her temple. Come on. Amy and the others are waiting. We have that team dinner. Remember? They stood and walked together toward the human sector, where their friends and chosen family waited. Behind them, the stars continued their ancient dance, unchanging and eternal. But for Zaranel and those she helped, everything had changed, and it was only the beginning.